Yeah, I just want to get a little quick, let me get this set here a little bit better. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, let me get this set here a little bit. I just want to make a quick note here and get a little bit in. It's kind of like thinking about a Chris Tomlin song and singing a song to the Lamb and the Silence of the Lamb and Jodie Foster, and a song by Motley Crue about the City Boy Blues, about the sushi being Japanese as compared to, you know, the Mugu Gai Pan being like a Chinese, and you know that one particular phrase about all the friends that talking about sushi, talking about you know who, and it's kind of like the intelligence side of the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi as compared to Japanese being 71 in Pearland, as the sushi would be in the song, as the lyrics of a Motley Crue song called City Boy Blues. In my mind, all of a sudden, like a Chris Tomlin song, Holy Forever. Yeah, I'll actually have to think and make sure. But anyway, it's like it's got all the blue, and it seemed to be the deal about a Stargate program. And all the connectivity and color code, as well as like lyrics and, you know, Japanese being 71 in Pearland. That one particular phrase at the song City Boy Blues, about, you know, all the friends talking, all the friends eating sushi and talking about it, about you know who, and then it seemed to be that all my friends were talking about heaven, talking about that Yoko Ono food, and it's like the baptism involving the Six Flags in June 14th, 1992, and the John Lennon thing, actually probably the clothing of the baptism. It seemed to be that, you know, like John the Baptist as compared to like John Lennon, and it seemed to be like all the connectivity of WEAINterNational, of like the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi being ISS and the SSI, International Superstar, and Supplemental Security, and International Secret Service, and Supplemental Security, and Superstar Intelligence, and all that stuff about the International Space Station quite a bit. But yeah, I was just thinking about that because it reminded me, and there was some other information I'm going to try and think about real quick. But I just want to make sure that the lighting, I'm just wanting to get this in before I kind of like, and it seemed to be now about like a bike that I just purchased not long ago. It's a Highland bike, and it's presenting the issue. And I'm kind of like wondering, you know, the way it's triangularly shaped now seems to be like what's been going on with the mattress and getting some current. It seemed to be like through the foundation, through like a metal bed, like the coils and the springs in the mattress. And all the stuff about, you know, County Road 107 and 20, it reminds me of like there was a time like when the three towers out of Highway 288 being channel 29, 30, 20, 26, and 39 are the three towers out of Highway 288, and the Tower 20 channel, there was like a triangular, sometimes they call it kind of like an A-frame, sometimes, in lighting, you know, it's like a truss, okay, but like sometimes in a frame with like those particular towers out there, they're triangular. And the bicycle that I have now has a triangular, kind of rounded off edges, not necessarily so pointed, but rounded off a little bit triangularly. And all this stuff about like right here at County Road 107, Pearland, Texas, Mona Street, Pearland, Texas 77584. It's kind of like what was given as signal transmission as a spiral. Didn't have any significance of potentially like a hybrid or a spring mattress, and now seem to have all this connectivity, like some information on television that was like the building or repair. I don't remember if it was actually building or repairing, but it was a lifting. I don't know if it's a GMC racing a bar thing. Although, you know, the equator is my thing about that, like right now. But right now I'm thinking about what was given as information on ABC. Really all the stations about a guy was like on a triangular frame, sometimes referred to kind of as an A-frame, not necessarily so all the time, that fell. It was approximately probably about 250, 300 feet up in the air, or maybe even higher. I mean, the tower is probably close to maybe, I'm not sure, it's probably, you know, 500 to 750 feet up in the air, I think. I'm not real sure how high, but it's like real high, okay? And they were like filming it, and the cable snapped, and it just like fell to the ground. And it was channel 20, and you know, alphanumerically 20 is like 107, and the triangular thing is like all going on about a cable, like inside, and it seemed like it has a servo, and somebody had like a connectivity to Chris Tomlin's song. Yeah. And a servo, and the card, it's identified like made available as a prepaid card, as a serve card. My thing about like being Vantage Love 30 and the serve, as compared to what now seems to be an issue like internally with a triangular tube as a servo, having some idea and effect of like something that I did not want or even, you know, refer to, or, you know, think that even having to be a tuboscope x-ray, you know, thing about it. And so like I'm trying to return it, okay, over like some unidentified break-in and method of, you know, changing gears. I mean, it's like so smooth and quiet, it's like virtually almost hard to even detect it like while riding without like losing the balance to begin with. Plus the wheels are like oversized, more so than they should be. Well, anyway, so like the transmission was like, you see, here's the thing about a perpendicular spiral, okay, is that somewhere in digital signal processing, like out of camera, excuse me, FM 1960, one and only time at Commandos saying it is a vertical type of transparent parameter of like live waveform and like a 90-degree superimposium type of digital signal processor. I mean, the one and only time I've ever seen. I didn't even know what to call it or even what it was at the time, back in the 80s, okay? That was even before I even went to study, you know, audio production, television production, and music video business at the Art Institute of Houston. You know, right after a little bit of time with the Center for Advanced Legal Studies, studying to be a paralegal. And, you know, complete like 9 courses on my 10th course, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so like in that sense, it's kind of like all that information. And it seemed to be like the Motley Crue thing about the sushi being Japanese, because sushi is Japanese, okay? Yet the Mugu Gaipan is kind of like the deal about Yoko Ono and John the Baptist. I mean, for real, it's kind of like the lens, like the Baptist is like now it's like to me the Six Flags Baptism, June 14th, 1992. Yeah, the Mormon Church in Friendswood, Texas, and it's becoming more and more the 6-point star and Six Flags. And a code blue thing about it, and something about like a military bill determinant in the mind's eye through the thing, the music video. The Holy Forever song is kind of like that somewhere in there, and it's not limited to, it's like the mind's eye of the word determinant. Man, I just want to kind of keep that in there because it seemed to be the connectivity of sing the song Ages to the Lamb, and it seemed to be the connectivity of a particular thing with a movie, Silence of the Lamb. And, you know, the way I see the word lamb, it's almost like linguistic alphanumerics. And the M being like a military, and the B seemed to be the thing about the, you know, pronunciation and the symbol on the backside of the US $1 bill, ultimately getting to the alphanumerics of 59. 58 like the minimum requirement, and knowing a little something about, you know, why it's 59. Because of a calculator presenting the E, whether it's an error or beyond the software engineering programmed, and in this particular case, anything like beyond calculus, an EE would be on a Texas Instruments calculator. And normally on basic calculators, only the E would present the error, but with calculus or anything beyond, you know, like you know, simple addition and subtraction, division and multiplication, even more so with calculus, the EE will pop up. I mean, it's like it matters, but it doesn't matter, because if it's beyond the software engineering or a mistake, I mean, either way, it's like beyond or not meeting the requirements one way or the other, a positive or a negative, and the EE will pop up. And alphanumerics with a positive or a negative, I mean, that's really something in that way like that, and the EE would pop up, okay? Well, anyway, like the alphanumerics with that symbolic symbol between the C and the PTIS is, you know, the automatic demanded standard of 58 with the 3 simplest most methods of computation and simple addition being 58, and that one line, it's horizontal, making it the EE, a different by design E at the same time, yet the different design E practical application and principle apply to calculus going into quantum. Although calculus has that different by design E recognizably like almost immediately by anyone who, reads and writes English, as that, although the symbolic representation is the different designee, but a symbolic representation of value of where it's applied and how it's used in computation. In calculus, it doesn't have the structure that quantum does, is the thing about it. Yeah, so it's like 59, like one of the oldest national landmarks of like the United States of America being Highway 59, the alphanumeric 140 in Pearland, Texas, and alphanumeric and attenuation and certain factors of that with just the simple idea of like including like the alphanumeric 41, like USA or home, like Pearland, Texas home, or attenuation USA, alphanumeric USA equaling 181 in Houston, Texas, and like WEAINterNational electronic power. And I mentioned it before, I'm not real sure to the extent of what selective service, what is really involved, other than, something of, my thought of like going through a Stargate program, ultimately getting to, like a duration of intellectual, some of the most intense, and memory would have to be the only possible, thing about it. And it being, really going on, 30, give or take, 5 years, I mean, at this point, really. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to include that because it seemed to be that Chris Tomlin's song, Holy Forever, and the Code Blue thing about something about even the what would be identified in like modern day as a cremation, but back in time, like a Native American Indians being lifted up on a platform to be burned, it seemed to be something about, even in a way of like the telepathic teepee and the Native American Indian, the teepee, that way of the alphanumerics of 36, chasing oil, and, or subconscious minds chase oil, the 36 thing, and the GIT, Geospatial Information Technology, and all that stuff about 36, okay? But it seemed to be, the alphanumerics of 36 that way of like subconsciousness and that alphanumeric value, and 64. And my thing was like more so on the subconscious mind chase and the 36 and the telepathic TP being 36 and oil and oats and all that way. But yeah, so like as far as like the alphanumeric value minus 26 being 181, I'll actually will have to think about that because I predominantly focus more on that, predominantly because of the 1992 presidential inaugural ball hosted by Chevy Chase with like William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore. And my thing about, some idea of like the algorithm, what that is, and pronunciation, and an algorithm as the word rhythm. And it's kind of like almost like the song, yeah, by Yes, the Rhythm of Love, yeah. And, it seemed to be the thing about really about the attenuation and WEAInterNational with the names as compared, I don't want to use the word comparative. Compatible would be more along the lines of like more of acceptance, and if that's going to be some idea of like the acceptance base, being the compatible thing, that would probably be more so on the programming and language side of like HTTP : // But it seemed to be the thing about it is that quite a bit about what's showing on what seemed to be like the Microsoft thing about the sequencing of like multiple screensavers. Ultimately, the Europe's most wealthiest museum. And when I realized that was the first time I realized, I don't like using the word amnesia. I mean, like at all. Something like an air raid, like while I was asleep. How many times I'm not sure, but it seemed to be like maybe a 6 to 9 month period. Ultimately, the memory, not even realizing the memory, and it's like waking up and going through a traumatic duration. Wasn't necessarily the idea of not remembering, wasn't even the thought on my mind, or a Stargate program, or what the deal is about, any of it associated with like an air raid while I was asleep. Because, being asleep as compared to being capable of even remembering it, I'm not sure I don't think I would even call it amnesia, but even remembering anything like that happening while asleep was obviously the issue. And when I realized it was like, only after I was on YouTube with my drums, okay, predominantly making music video with lighting like you're seeing now, not limited to, sometimes with fog, okay. But anyway, yeah, it seems to be like right now, okay, this is the year 2024, November 2024, I think, yeah. Anyway, it's 2024. Yeah, the election. Yeah, the next six presidential term in office. Yeah, this year. Yeah, I'm thinking about between Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt. Okay, and the New Deal Act, and it seemed to be like the thing like right now what's really been going on seemed to be the idea of maybe the transmission of what was then a tragedy of like a guy falling from a triangular frame. I'm not sure if it was being maintenance or being built, but it's the location of like 3 of the local television news is 20, 26, and 39 out of Highway 288 south of like a Loop 610, Houston, Texas area. Yeah, so in any case, yeah, so like that being the Tower 20 thing, and this like alphanumerically 20 is 107 or Quantum or Diners Club and all this stuff. Well, now it seemed to be like a bicycle that I chose because I really liked it. I wanted something a little different, and I picked a Highland, and now it's presenting the issue of like gears changing with the servo inside the tube and pipe. It's really making me like really not liking it really at all. It's not that I chose that for that, although it seemed to be like what was a prepaid card made available is a blue, and now it seemed to be like a thing about a Chris Tomlin song. It's really, really one of the better songs. I mean, I'm really liking it. I mean, for real, that Holy Forever song. And the other deal about another location, I'm not even sure if it was really in Cairo, Egypt at all. Something about that in a transponder, the black box. And some information that would be like linked to like Emirate and how true that is. I mean, alphanumerically, I mean, just based on available information and the memory, quite a bit seemed to be like about the guitar and like a Nicolas Cage movie about the Con Air, as well as the guitar scene where that plane is knocking the arm with the frets on it down, and some idea like a guitar airline that way. But Fort Stockton, Texas, okay, and the James Denali and the alphanumerically 200 is like all of a sudden like like the Robert E. Rubin light scribe thing about the Chevrolet GeoPrism, and GeoPrism spelled with a Z. GeoPrism is GeoPrism is GeoWinner. Although that seemed to be the location of Emirate guitar and like Boeing, and Boeing being the thing about the alphanumerically 52 and VPN, a vice president networker. The idea of like a via plenipotentiary network, and how true it is. I don't know if that's just the excuse of whether intellectuals identified as the end user, as a VPN, identified maybe as the thought of a virtual personal network, as if some reality of like intellectual property is some idea of the imagination of Houston, Pearland, Texas, or a Pearland home, or the alphanumerics of 112, or some idea of like finding the unknown in algebra. Based upon knowing that a letter is normally considered a variable, predominantly in algebra of x and y, although not limited to, placement and practical application of proper English numerical composition involving alphanumerics and linguistics. So like anyway, so like the thing with this is that it presents all that information, and it seemed to be some idea of the silence of the lambs. And even the heart song Dog and a Butterfly. The thing about as American as hot dogs and apple pie. And I was thinking about that because and now it seemed to be the significance of a Motley Crue song. City Boy Blues and the connectivity like Chris Tomlin's Holy Forever, and something about the mind's eye, going through the Stargate program, obviously a huge deal about memory. Seemed to be the thing about the several factors of like the mind's eye, for real, of a military barrel determinant. And the sequencing of light color would seem to be that video of the blue. And it seemed to be like an Indian barrel, like cremation would be like burning up on a platform like they do in certain types of movies. It seemed to be like a thing that happened indoors and outdoors during day and night. Something of the American Indian thing, some idea of like in between like a Wyatt Earp and John Wayne. Yeah, so like anyway, so like and that blue thing seemed to be that song Chris Tomlin, but it is really, I mean, one of my favorite songs like right now. I mean, for real. And the thing about that other song, I'm actually trying to, I mean, I do so many songs that sometimes I talk so fast, it's kind of like I have to think about it, but it's another Chris Tomlin song. But anyway, it's got the bus thing there right there. And ultimately, it seemed to be like ultimately it gets to, beyond the Bluebird bus, going through a circuit. Many people, automatically, anything other than it being, like aggregates of monetary domestic gross national product and multinational corporations and international banking systems, and WEAInternational is my thought right now. And something about, I have a Bluebird card, okay, and American Express, okay, but I'm having problems with it. Seem to be like AOL and, Google and other factors like presenting issues, even 911, 611 operators. And hey man, it's kind of like, getting to actually use it. It's kind of like a person who told me, hey, you can have it, but you can't use it. And I think she's listening right now. So like, if that's what that means, using my American Express Bluebird card is ultimately getting to the Bluebird is like the white Airbus, okay? And another thought about a memory I'm actually trying to place and remember quite a bit, because it seemed to be the memory minus de facto being 35, ultimately Austin being 84. And the thing about the chapter, winners and losers, okay, in the book 6 of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, in 1964 and 1965 combined, like, sequence and characterization says the 4 only using 2 numbers that way. It's still the principle of binary numbers, 0 and 1 being 2 numbers. Likewise, my birth year, 1964 being 83, and 1965 being 84. And I think that's the significance of the Social Security Administration's telephone number ending in 12 and 13, because 12 is like L, and M is like 13 is like M, 12 and 13, okay? And if it's the Y2K thing about 12 and 13 being like 25, the Y2K, ultimately getting to a combine of, Y2K, based on, using sequence and characterization in sets 4 only using 2 numbers like Y2K suggests, okay? And the Social Security Administration, 1-800-772-1213, being a Y2K, ultimately a combine of Y2K, being alphanumeric and numerical, being 94 and annotated, adoption, abortion, a Roe v. Wade thing, even a method of banking. It seemed to be the thing about the COVID ID 19 and color money like right now. But anyway, so it's like all this is going on, and I had this bicycle, and I'm trying to actually get a refund, and I saw on YouTube, like, presenting it with some information in a way. But anyway, yeah, so like I'm trying to, because I'm really not wanting like a servo inside of my tube, because it was not identified or described as that, but it's obviously presenting even an unidentified method of breaking. It's unreal, like not cool. So like I'm like going to return it, and hopefully I'll get the prepaid return label and not have a contesting factor of some idea of like duration. So anyway, like I'm waiting on that right now, because I'm really not buying it for that crap, okay? Or being some like idea of like a tube scope, like, X-ray, phenomenon, or some national security issue over like making a purchase on Amazon.com, or, present like international, importing and exporting issues only because of a method of banking as immigration custom enforcement, or, some idea of like I can go on and on about it, okay? But anyway, I don't have to be an idiot thinking that it's not that. I'm sure that, like, really thinking that or even saying that it is would only be like, hey, there's an investigation. Is there really? Really? Are you kidding me? Is it really that? The Who Knows Anyway form of a VPN, are you kidding me? Or it's like the heartbeat of America and boring a VPN, or some guitar and emirate issue, like yeah, it seemed to be like even an Ivanka Tonka truck, and Donald Trump. It seemed to be like beyond the Golden Arches. It seemed to be the thing about a podium, even a Bette Midler song. God is watching us from a distance, and it seemed to be a thing about the airport and her at the podium. It's kind of like when I saw that picture, it seemed to be like once again, like a thing about the military barrel deterrent and from a distance, and the mind's eye thing about it. Because like when I saw that picture, it's kind of like and then ultimately now it seemed to be like a thing about the an extremely huge dump truck in the desert. And it seemed to be, I don't know what the deal is. I listen to music and practice it so much, and the memory of like just like automatically thinking that way. And normally I usually didn't think this way right here until really some other issues had taken place. seemingly now, June 14th, 1992, baptism has ultimately been now like a Six Flags, Six National Anthem, like a Star of David, Israeli Absolute Christianity thing about a 6-point star and telepathic angel, and all the alphanumerics of like presidents, and the alphanumerics of six being the idea of like a huge presidential like number. It seemed to be the thing about what's going on. But anyway, yeah, so like and the alphanumerics of six being like six itself numerically and alphanumerically. 52, okay, but or the heart or the pearl or the VPN and Boeing and quite a bit about it. Yeah, so like anyway, so like I just want to make a quick note. It's already going on like 26 minutes, real close here in about like 5 seconds. But anyway, I want to get that much in because it seems to be a big thing right now about Japanese being like the sushi. The fish, okay, is the thing about the sushi, okay. The fish is about the electronic schematic fish and like one cycle and oscillation. And the now thing like the McDonald's golden arches being a degree level representation of consensual participation. Like one cycle would be like the fish, a symbolic representation that a lot of people put on their cars to represent Christianity. The sushi being Japanese, okay. Sushi is a fish, okay. That's normally identified as like normally being eaten as raw. How true that is about it being raw. Although sushi is Japanese, like 71 in Pearland here, Pearland, Texas, yeah. Although the Mugu Gaipan is really the thing about John Lennon and the Motley Crue song, it seemed to be, the misappropriation, the allocation of the Mississippi that way, with that one particular song. And it seemed to be, like I'm really hearing the words that Chris Tomlin's really singing in that song, Holy Forever. And there's the other song, I'm trying to think of it real quick. And it almost seems to be the black box about the transponder, another location. Showing a Cairo bus and how true it is. I think that it may be, and there's something about that seemed to be like going through like a very intense time between like 1994, 95, and 96. Yet still like a 6-month to a 9-month period that almost I can hardly even account for. And the memory and remembering when I knew for the first time was when I was looking at screensavers and realizing over a period of years that I'd noticed the sequencing of a Microsoft using multiple like screensavers, sequencing them over a period of years, and I realized I had seen it, that many times, but I was looking at it, and all of a sudden it's like the memory of that one particular deal of Europe's most wealthiest museum, and remembering that it had been taken there, it's kind of like I was thinking that looks like a funeral home, and not necessarily a museum of dead people that's been like preserved, and now like a whole bunch of music videos of like what seems to be now that one video, a screensaver being Europe, and some idea like Europe and like Egypt, of like a bunch of people staring at each other in like a Egyptian setting, and like even kingsmanship in my mind. Somehow in my mind, Alphanumerics 213, the Aryan Sky Angel Vatten, and what the euro dollar is to the US dollar, and the symbolic representation in alphanumerics and linguistics, and the one cartoon in driver's education that makes everything to seem to be a plus sign, and now the pasty symbol color code representing the plateau like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which seemed to be the James Lennon unit. On one side of like for Purple Mountains Majesties above the fruited plain seemed to be the identical twin rainbow on one side, approximately around anywhere between like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., which seemed to be the approximation on another Saturday morning, June 14, 1992, of a baptism at the Mormon church. And, I would never thought that importing and exporting would have been an issue of like going to church, or the excuse of not knowing that Israel is 64 like an American, or the idea of like a carbon footprint, or like absentee voting, seemingly like the idea of a constitutional law being enforced, and no one ever having a thing to say about it. But obviously, at this point, me not saying if there's anything I haven't thought of or said now. But anyway, on my YouTube.com channel at WadeASVPriddy, P-R-I-D-D-Y, at YouTube.com, I talk quite a bit about it, like really. But anyway, so now it seems to be like the Chris Tomlin song, Holy Forever, and the other song, with the on-site location, it seemed to be my own words, like an all-terrain interior design. It's amazingly, my home is kind of like it had been an issue to where it got to be that like continually to try and keep it clean became almost as this whole thing as like not being the way it is, and just like ultimately just like throwing trash everywhere in the home to my thought, like, okay, so it's going to maybe be some preventative, like, attitude about it. But anyway, yeah, so, like, that's what's going on with, like, a carbon footprint, political reference, huh? So anyway, yeah, so, like, yeah, so, like, I'm inside the tent right now. Also, you know, the same living room where my drum sets were. I sold my drum set because some idea of, like, a Prohibition VSX Strata Red, with the black hardware. Was like not even remembering that somehow, like, all my furniture had been changed during the most intense parts, and didn't even realize in my home. And, you know, 15, 20 years later, how long I hadn't actually, obviously, you know, anyway, this is year 2024, and really I started, you know, making my music videos. I think it was like towards the mid to the end of like 2020, and excuse me, 21 or 22, 2022. Anyway, yeah, so, like, anyway, this is year 2024, and there's a period of like 16 months, predominantly like once a month, okay, and I believe it's having to go to, you know, the hospital, for, you know, many factors, all combined, happening all at once, like amyloidosis and congestive heart failure, and all kinds of, like, respiratory and circulation issues, and ultimately, even, you know, previously, even knowing that much about circulation affecting, you know, like a guy man thing, having a betweenies, you know, in urology and, like, endocrinology, and it should have been like one of the first things that they should had mentioned about, you know, potentially being the exposure thing, about, like, not even realizing what exposure is, or recognizing it as that, yeah, and an overbound amount of white blood cells, creating, like, the idea of, like, capillary blood vessels, capillary tube, affecting some idea of, like, you know, the thing about it, like, you know, having the betweenings about the guy thing about it, involving, you know, the pituitary gland and hormones that way. And, you know, normally, you know, like I'd mentioned before, a urologist or endocrinologist not mentioning anything about it, would be a whole bunch of, like, serious crap about, like, it not being, like, almost one of the first things that they should have already been saying, considering that I've already mentioned it. Or, you know, the idea of, like, an ongoing issue with, like, a congestive anything would be anything other than medication actually causing it itself. I didn't believe, like, not one thing about it. Or some idea of, like, electrophysiology. Ultimately getting to, you know, what the Consumer Report and Price Index means on the Food and Health and Drug Administration and distribution of food, or what the World Health Organization means in Pearland, Texas. Yeah, so, like, you know, a whole bunch of, like, not funny stuff has, like, been on, really, since I've been on YouTube, on my drums, and really it shouldn't be an issue at all. It's really what it is. And if all this is, like, going on as some idea like a YouTube.com and WEAINternational, and some idea of, like, a shadow government Stargate program. Oh, anyway, this is what I have to say about it. Anyway, so, like, this is, like, right here in Pearland, Texas, at 3611 Munn Street, Pearland, Texas. Kind of row 107, yeah. Anyway, my name is Wade, okay? I'm a drummer and a singer. You'll see me on my drums, and right now I'm working on getting it complete. What you see me on is a total of, like, 35 pieces, including hardware, cymbals, special effects, and drums, and, you know, the drum fill and the snare, and all that's, like, 35 pieces. There's 15 drum sets, 15 drums, okay? Predominantly 6-9, 6, 8, and 10 rototom, and, you know, the 4 set of octobans, and, you know, predominantly, you know, the 2 mounted toms on a double bass band, a total of 6 drums, and a floor tom and a snare, being the 15 pieces, and, yeah. In any case, yeah, so, like, I'm working on getting a complete Strata Blue, and I'm actually trying to get, you know, it's actually getting, ordered a transparent ruby red of the Pearl Rocket Tom, and I ordered them, and it was said that other than, you know, the Metroplex in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, that that's being manufactured in Taiwan, China, or wherever it's at. But yeah, I think it's China. But in any case, yeah. So, like, in any case, you know, that was normally, like, you know, the Metroplex thing about, you know, the United States corporate headquarters, and the main thing about, you know, North America and the United States is Pearl Drum, you know, and the Metroplex, Nashville, Tennessee. But anyway, yeah. So, like, now I'm trying to get a rock tom in a transparent, you know, ice blue. Chaos has them. I'm not real thrilled about the thing about Chaos, okay? I mean, if that hadn't happened already yet, well, then That's about Australia, okay? But it seemed to be the thing about Australia is like the 9 degree of an equator. There's some idea of some absolute parameters. The one and only equator being the equivalent of a longitude. And it seemed to be like a point of origin in military time that way. And my thing about Australia, it seemed to be that seemed to be automatically in my mind somehow a point of origin that may be the already prefix. I'm thinking that, but I'm really not going to worry about it right now. But it seemed to be automatically in my mind that somehow Sydney, Australia, is almost the similarities of like identification going through the circuit, not limited to certain factors of that. Yeah, so like the EA Sports, okay, it seemed to be the thing about really some factors of executive administration, or the thought that executive alphanumerics, or the EA Sports representing some idea of like a import and export and immigration custom enforcement, and what that is with television programming and the football and globalization, predominantly the separate football. Globalization being the word for international financial management and science software. I mean, it's like automatic, you know. But anyway, yeah. So like, I'm wanting to kind of like stay focused on that Chris Tomlin, because I mean, like right now, it's like one of my most favorite, like right now. But it being like a Code Blue thing now, and the memory, and realizing it really probably for about the last several years since I've been on YouTube and all this like stuff started happening. And it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, you know, I mean, if it's an idea of like a portfolio being used, other than, you know, an experience of like going through obviously a governmental issue like a shadow government Stargate program, or you know, the idea of what or who's all involved, and if that's the only issue, well, you know, not one word has been really said about it. But at this point, I mean, I'm not trying to be a self-destructive anything about, you know, like realizing that memory had been a huge issue, and not even knowing the fact that that memory was, it being obviously a direction that I'd known had been a period of like somewhere between 6 to 9 months in various locations all around the entire world, yeah. And ultimately some of the music videos that are showing now of like Egypt, a whole bunch of gold and glitter. It seemed to be like everyone's like sitting still, staring at each other, standing still and just like staring at each other. And ultimately, you know, that was like the very first screensaver. That's when I knew that memory had been a huge issue. And I don't like saying it's amnesia, because I knew what had happened was like an air raid. I mean, I knew that had been, and not limited to, an air raid inside going through, you know, a circuit. And I don't know if that's really the word amnesia, but it happening while I was sleeping, some traumatic issue, like going through it for about a 6 to 9 month period, but really about a 3 year period of a 4 year, 3 month period on its end, okay? Seemed to be a thing about it, but yeah. So, I mean, it seemed to be like right now, all that's like going on in my mind. And the bicycle, it seemed to be like the spiral, the perpendicular spiral, you know, I never thought of it like a coil. Home of the 1100 Springs, the Pearl Bearer, and the De Beers Diamonds at the book, Secrets of Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country. I mean, if the spring is ultimately the 1100 Springs of K television, huh? K radio, huh? And it's like the river, okay? Yet like the Delta Force is the biggest mouth of the river at the same time. And all this information I've been talking about, okay? The De Beers Diamond in the book, Secrets of the Temples. The De Beers Diamonds, the Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country. And it draws a huge triangular between the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean. And it seems whether or not if Israel or the European issue of the Mediterranean, or the Israel thing of, you know, Christian religion, or the European issue of the Eurodollar and the US $1, symbolic representation on the backside of the US $1, and presenting all the issues that I've been talking about on my channel, WadeASVPriddy, P-R-I-D-D-Y, at YouTube.com, including me on the drums. And when I get back on my drums, I'll have a complete, you know, what you see as a total of, you know, including hardware and symbols. Yeah, I like, so I think I like including like the hi-hat, 2 splash, a 22-inch ride, a 16-18 crash, and a China cymbal in the hi-hat, set of hi-hats, and 1 special effects symbol, separate than, you know, the zillion, a custom like FX, EFX symbols, which happen to be the best crash symbols I've really had. But now I'm fixing to get the, seem to be the thing, close encounters of the third kind, and the color code is pasty symbols and ultimately a white footprint, going beyond like a birth certificate and like the black paste used also in fingerprints, yet at the same time a birth certificate and a footprint. And the thing about pasty symbols is like an experience of like consumption. I mean, if that's the only thing about the white footprint, a bunch of white pasty looking like, film like seeping through the pores of my skin. I mean, if that's the one experience of like a color sound, pasty color sound, representing color codes of the International Electrical Electronic Engineering and the book Orion Performance Monitor, Orion Performance Monitoring with the hot air balloons and the color code, or the condensation and evaporation of hot air balloons based upon altimeter and temperature, presenting the mandatory requirements of a rainbow. Well, there it is, okay? And the thing about the James Lanall unit, okay, and the rainbow being for Purple Mountain's Majesties above the fruited plain, the fruited plain being the rainbow itself. And for Purple Mountain's Majesty, it's obviously the plateau, something about the Ten Commandments being, like Moses on getting 2 tablets, okay? Etching like lightning bolts, okay, on a plateau. And after the 3rd day of the Lord Jesus Christ, crucifixion and resurrecting, going to Mount Olives on a plateau and re-entering heaven, thing about it, okay? So all that alphanumerics about 6 in presidential reference, and the alphanumerics of 6 seems to be very much about the plateau. That way, in the James Lanall unit in Fort Stockton, Texas, the Ector sector guitar thing, and in my mind, Emirate guitar, and like Boeing, some idea of the summit meetings, and WEAInternational, with the Permian Basin might only seem to be to a footprint on a birth certificate. Maybe others, maybe a memorial as compared to a monument. Or the footprint that's identified in huge, worldwide import and exporting manufacturers. And the interviews, it presents the footprint and the carbon footprint and all that stuff about, absolute Christianity and all that stuff. Lord, where were you when I needed you most? It's like that's the one I was carrying anything. As compared to a military barrel to determine the front lines of the beachfront of importing and exporting seem to be the thing about the Christian thing. About the amphibious thing of J. Edgar Hoover that way. Hoover and hover that way. An FBI thing about the thing about the amphibious aircraft that way. Even the principle of Star Wars and anyway, yeah. So anyway, it's already it's going on like 42 minutes, and 43 seconds right now. But anyway, yeah, I want to keep that right there. And right now, I'm thinking pretty much about the Highland bike and channel between the spiral, the transmission about the center point energy being smart meter being used as a reason 0, and now seem to be the Roosevelt New Deal Act presenting the energy side. I've seen, I don't like calling version I mean at all, but it seemed to be like the when and where and keeping up with it and realizing something about the energy and the Roosevelt New Deal Act and alphanumerics of like New Deal being 64, like PTIS or ACTP : // and American movie and music minus A and all that stuff about the alphanumerics of 64. The thing is that the Roosevelt New Deal Act being 88 in California or Trump or the idea of like Mormon, okay, and some idea of like all that about a birth certificate, or even a hypothetical metaphor, or in a way of like even an unidentified flying high school yearbook, okay. And what that is, going through a Stargate program seems to be the big deal about when it matters most to the Department of Public Safety. And moving vehicle, same. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, so so anyway, yeah, so that's where I'm at right now, because it seems to be the thing right now that I'm pretty much thinking about it as a bicycle, and the connectivity of color code, and it seemed to be the Silence of the Lamb, what would be almost similar to like Con Air, with Nicolas Cage, at the similarities of Silence of the Lamb with Jodie Foster, and the thing about the Silence of the Lamb and the thing about the bicycle, and it would seem to be now the Tower 20 being alphanumerics 107, like right here where I'm at, like right now, County 107, Mona Street, Pearland, Texas 77584, and the transmission is showing spirals on world news and national news about that one particular deal and this area. Although the perpendicular spiral, it seems to be the thing about ultimately a 9-degree superimposium of a 9-degree right angle being 90 degrees, okay, of a vertical transparent parameter of live audio production of quantum. And the one only time that I've seen it like in person, or really ever, was in person. I didn't even know I was looking at or what to call it. And now that's exactly what, it seemed to be as the vertical live transparent parameters, what would be normally horizontal and very visible, as like customizing waveform during post-production. Yeah, what I've seen is the live thing about the transparent parameter being live vertically, not post-production or editing or any modification or any post-production in that way, but completely live that way. Yeah, so like the quantum thing about Diners Club, yeah, and military 107 and 20, and it seemed to be like the Channel 20 thing, and what that is to like center point energy. It seemingly now seems to be that center point energy smart meter's been, the idea that it's been like region zero before I even knew what the issue was really about. That now seems to be the Texas-New Mexico power thing. Very well may be the thing about the Roosevelt New Deal Act being a requirement of the Roosevelt New Deal Act being Texas-New Mexico power, and not necessarily a question of international citizenship or anything about, birth certificates or birthrights, or what the white footprint seemed to be, a pasty symbol. Me being a drummer automatically, when it was like happening. A white paste seeping through based upon consumption. It's like not my idea, willingly or knowingly anticipating anything like it, but now it seems to be the white footprint, separate from the black footprint on a birth certificate. Similar thing of biometrics and LightScribe, beyond even the toner copying process, going straight beyond, any paste at all into, what would be like a liquid, then a dry, then, the thing about, a molecular state between a solid, a liquid, and gaseous, and envision that way, like even LightScribe involving, just light of biometric and fingerprints that way. Not limited to biometrics, but yeah, invisible programming that way. What seems to be now the difference between like a bluebird bus or the whoopah bird of Israel being the blue and purple. It's one bird, blue and purple. Okay, and it seems to be the significance of, all the thought about of Zion and Grover Cleveland and 1,000 Years of Peace applied to like the blue and purple being 128 and combined being like 1128, FM 1128, about 5/8 of a mile from like where I'm at like right now in Pearland, Texas, and the connectivity of like Egypt and Harris and Israeli that way, on the south side of the Houston, Texas area, yeah, and Alphanumerics USA and Attenuation USA and digital signal processing and conversion from analog to digital and, absolute Christianity, all the stuff that's going on that I'm talking about on my YouTube.com channel at WadeASVPriddy, PRDDY. And there it is. I'm going to take a break. It's already going on like 47 minutes and, yay, 58 seconds. So there it is. I'm going to take a break right there, okay?